So I kind of actually was hoping I would go last because I think a lot of what Dr. Profella was talking about was something that you all are doing. I read your reports to AACSB. I know a lot about what's happening in business schools. And so you all are the experts as far as student engagement. And I will tell you, this is an area that I see India as a whole generally is actually exemplary in. Student engagement is something you do really, really well. And you could probably teach your peers around the world how to do it better. But we're here today to, again, talk about this strength of yours. And I'm going to give you a little bit of some insights around learner success, which is something that through the pandemic we've all kind of been talking about. I want to discuss some of the drivers of change in business education and how that can impact what is happening in your classrooms, and also to understand the contribution of the 2020 standards more as a way to reframe how you think. A lot of times I hear from schools, well, is it okay if we do that? Or is this the right way? Is this the wrong way? And actually what I want to help reframe a little bit is that there is no right or wrong, right? It's really about understanding the principles of this environment, and the standards are structured in a way to give you that freedom, to empower you to make those kinds of changes in your classroom if you're attuned and you're prepared to do that. So one of the things we learned from the pandemic was academics can move quickly, right? Prior to the pandemic, it was, oh no, we can't actually teach our students 100% online. It'll never work, right? But we know emergency response teaching is something you can do and you can do well, right? But risk management is essential. So I'll give an example of Singapore. The government required pre-pandemic that every single public institution, faculty member employed at a public institution was teaching at least one online course per year. Why did they do that, right? Maybe they had some idea, but this idea that if you are envisioning a different future and you're planning for that, and you're recognizing risks and trying to mitigate those risks, that there are opportunities for you to really think through some of these things. So I had a conversation with a school pre-pandemic, and I said, you know, all your students are interested in Baiju and some of these tutoring courses, and they're doing everything online. What are you doing about online? And they were just like, oh, our students don't want online, right? So that's the wrong frame of mind if you think about it. The frame of mind should be what's coming next and how are we prepared for it, right? So this change in mindset is another thing we've learned from the pandemic, is that we are no longer the stage on the stage, we are now a facilitator. So you see changes that was already happening pre-pandemic, it is something that is accelerated and widely adopted now. Another concept that has emerged is that learners include faculty. Faculty must be prepared and they need training and support to get there. And they need to be prepared, they need to be agile. We're also seeing diversified approaches to learning assessment. So technology is fueling a lot of this, that there is an increase in formative and authentic assessment happening, and that we expect more. And that's part of this personalization that we're talking about in terms of students. If you can really get in and learn as they go, learn what they're learning as they go, you can make interventions in the curriculum quickly. Rethinking, absolutely rethinking around the role technology will play in the future of learning. I think this is something we're talking a lot about. I won't go into it, but also the use of physical spaces. So you're now looking at classrooms that, you know, again, you still have the sage on the stage, you're looking out over everybody. But a lot of schools are rethinking how they can redesign, retrofit their face-to-face classrooms for greater learning. And there's a lot more unbundling. We talked about this has already been discussed quite a bit, but outsourcing of non-core functions. So one of the things that highlights is that there's a whole new aspect to a business school that needs to constantly be evaluating what are these services, what are the things, what is the value we add, and how can we design and utilize resources that are not part of our core that are out there in the marketplace. And another conversation that we're having a lot of is about technology in terms of, can 100% immersive, can technology provide that immersive experience that transforms students? And a lot of what we discovered during the pandemic was no, technology's not there yet. But the truth is it's coming, and we heard some of that earlier with this metaverse and Web3. There are, our students are much more, our learners are much more attuned to some of these new changes, and they're open to it. So how can we create those spaces for learning? And of course, the world is interconnected, and business has an important role to play in solving the world's problems. So in that context, these are some of the main drivers that we're seeing in business education. Increasing rate of technology disruption, rise of new educational models, including micro-credentials. We talked about these stackable alternative degrees. And then, of course, the perceived value of business schools as positive contributors to society. And interestingly, all of this has already been discussed this morning, so as a validation. So what does the 2020 Business Accreditation Standards? I'm just going to quickly give you 4 points, what those contributions are, so you can get a feel for how we're looking at learning in this new world. It's local decisions at each school, but how the standards, which are written by business schools for business schools, are enabling learner success. So the first is this move towards principles-based and outcomes-focused standards. So again, it's not how you get there that matters, it's what the outcome is, and that's what we're evaluating when we evaluate high quality. We recognize the distinct differences among business schools. It's not a one-size-fits-all approach, and we also utilize the expertise of peer reviewers to understand and recognize what high quality is in an outcomes focused manner. The second is this call that business schools will identify how they envision making a positive societal impact. And again, what Rajan was talking about earlier with the class mix side, looking at outcomes, looking at what is the output that you're looking for. And so when you start to think strategically about societal impact, the impact that each and every school will have will be different. And you know who's going to probably help you understand what that is? Your students, your learners, your alumni, industry. They're going to help you understand what your positive impact is on society, and we want schools to start to envision this and look towards this. And that will help you in your classroom as you design your curriculum and you think about how you can engage those more purpose-driven students that are coming through your classroom. And then third, of course, they embrace alternative instructional delivery models. Again, we don't know what these look like today. We're calling them micro-credentials. They include badges, they include certificates. These have been around for a while. Majors and minors have been around for a while, but we're embracing these in different types of instructional delivery models in a way of saying we recognize that innovation and experimentation needs to happen for our own survival as schools, and it's going to be important that we recognize these within the standards, and we've given you some guidelines around how you can continue to think. I think the government has come out with some interest in having micro-credentials included in the classroom and some regulations around there. And AACSB isn't going to look at you and say, you know, you can't do this or you can do this. We're going to look at outcomes. What are those outcomes and how are those delivery models being improved? The key is that your curriculum should be relevant, and we've heard that today. They also promote the importance of collaboration. So again, we've given some guidance around this and said, we understand that a lot of the major resources that you can have as institutions are through collaboration with other disciplines, other institutions. It doesn't have to be, the business school end-to-end that does teaching and learning all by itself without any outside help is going to become irrelevant extremely fast. So we want to enable and help schools, and that's what NEP we'll talk about tomorrow has a lot to say about this, but this is the future. The future is where there's not a one-size-fits-all approach, that we are concerned with how we are having an impact on society, that we recognize quality comes in different formats and students need a variety of learning models, and that we promote the importance of collaboration. And that's it.